You are about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
And we are back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dahlia, 1-877 DOCDALI. So ever since I was in medical school, people would ask, when will there be a blood test to see if you are at risk for dementia? We can test your cardiac risk. We could test your diabetes risk. We could test for other cancers. What about, though, dementia and Alzheimer's? Well, they have developed blood tests, and this is the closest they've been now, where we could maybe predict Alzheimer's at its earliest level. We're still not where we need to be because we need a cure for Alzheimer's, but it's helpful to know and to institute brain-saving measures like quit the alcohol, quit the sugar, quit the smoking, exercise, and we do have some medications that may slow down Alzheimer's. As you know, Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia. It affects 7 million Americans, I think even more than that. We don't have a cure. But according to the National Institute of Health, previous researchers found that a blood test for a protein called p-tau217 could identify individuals with the amyloid plaques and tau tangles. Amyloid plaques and tau tangles are what we find in people with Alzheimer's. It builds up in the brain. And before somebody can appear to have cognitive deficit, we could pick up on this protein. The blood test will help clinicians diagnose Alzheimer's in patients with cognitive impairment, but we want to hopefully catch before you start to lose your brain function. So an NIH-funded research team led by Dr. Suzanne Schindler at Washington University in St. Louis examined whether this p-tau217 blood test could predict if and when someone will develop Alzheimer's. So basically, they developed an Alzheimer's clock model using data from people who underwent multiple of these p-tau217 blood tests over time. Their result was published on February 19th in Nature Medicine. So the team looked at these levels and samples from 603 older people across two separate groups. Using the data, the team created a model that could predict the age at which this p-tau level first appeared, and the age correlated with the age at which the person began showing symptoms. And the researchers found that the time from when the elevated tau proteins first appeared, or the marker first appeared, to the onset of Alzheimer's symptoms got shorter as you aged. A person with an elevated p-tau217 at age 60 would develop symptoms about 20 years later. Meanwhile, a person whose p-tau217 became elevated at age 80 would develop symptoms after 11 years. So the findings suggested that the time it took until the onset of Alzheimer's disease symptoms could be estimated from a single blood test. Now, we're not necessarily at the point where I could give this test to a 20-year-old and say, you're going to develop Alzheimer's. We're not there yet. And they say the test is not recommended for cognitively normal people. However, in people where we're suspecting it, this could be extremely helpful. Now, for some of you going, but so when do you do this? What do you do? So I know it seems a little confusing, but right now, what are we doing in terms of Alzheimer's? All right. Well, it's the honor system. It's like, if you got something, say it. Speak up. Do you have any issues? No, I don't have any issues. No, I'm fine. If I do, the family will put me in a home. I'm good. Just give me my Viagra and let me go on with my life. Okay, that's not the best way to do it. And then it takes the wife or husband or children going, he loses things. His zipper's always down. He doesn't zip up his pants when he puts them on. His shirts are backwards. Something's wrong. Well, by then, there's already damage. So what we need to do, and we're still not there yet, is when you come in for your cholesterol or your thyroid or your blood work, assuming you're going to the doctor. I know a lot of people don't. They just do telemedicine. But assuming you're actually going in and getting physicals done, hopefully we'll be at a point we could put a blood test on there and go, okay, let's see how your mental health and your cognitive health is. And if it shows there's an issue, then we do have some medicines we could use to slow things down. But Aricept, Namenda, and hopefully by then we will have a medicine that can help stop the damage from happening. People ask, Dahlia, how are we able to, treat people's HIV, prevent HIV, treat cancer? How are we able to keep Jimmy Carter alive till he's 100, over 100? May he rest in peace now, with stage 4 melanoma. But we can't fight dementia. We can't, because damage to the brain is very delicate. And also, I think not only are we looking at these beta amyloid and tau protein plaques, but I think we have a lot of people with multi-infarct dementia where they have lack of blood flow to parts of the brain, and then that damages the brain. Not to mention concussions, not to mention poor diet. I mean, there's I think a big part of our dementia is lack of oxygen going to the brain. We might not have official sleep apnea, but if you aren't getting enough oxygen to the brain, that affects the brain. And so I think that we're dealing with something that is so delicate, and to try to stop, somebody had come up years ago with a way to try and prevent Alzheimer's by blocking your body from making amyloid. If you blocked your body from making amyloid, then it won't deposit in the brain. Yeah, but the problem is the rest of your body needs the amyloid. So that study that clinical trial didn't go too far. We're getting there, but we're not there yet. We might not be there until after I'm gone. And I'm worried about that because I'm worried about getting dementia. Most of the men in my family are gone in their 60s. And then one of my grandmothers had dementia. I think she had multi-infarct dementia. Some people said it was Alzheimer's, but no biopsy or no autopsy was ever done. My other grandmother was fit as a fiddle till the day she died, except she ended up having cancer, colon cancer, and she was a smoker. So I worry about that. But we're getting closer with this blood test, but we're just not there yet. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Dr. Dahlia here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
right back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. I do appreciate the questions that many of you ask as it pertains to the economy. Again, this is not an economy show, so please don't take my advice. But one of you had asked, how do I feel about the stock market dropping and would I sell? And again, I'm not the right person to ask. I went to medical school. And I know people think doctors, are rich and they know what to do with money and stocks. Remember, I was the one who told my roommate when he said that he wants to put some of his money into this new stock that he thinks is pretty exciting. And I go, what's the name of the stock? And he said, it's called a company called Walmart. And I said, that sounds stupid. I go, your loss. So remember, okay, don't take advice from me. However, in my experience, what I am kind of blown away by is the psychology behind the stock market. And so Trump gets on a microphone and says the war is about to end. We're going to wrap this up. And then all of a sudden the stock market goes up. Now, when he did that last week, it was like, whoa, I think it's still going to go on for a little while longer. And I'm glad Trump, is doing what he's doing, to try to stop the threat from Iran, but I don't think it's going to be over yet. And so him getting back on a mic saying, guys, it's going to be over soon, I don't think it's going to have that same effect. However, I do think it's going to end soon. I don't think we're going to be in a long, drawn-out conflict with Iran. I don't. I think we hit them hard, and Trump said he thinks it's going to last about 4 weeks. So I don't want to get rid of anything because I think, things are going to go back up in 4 weeks. It could be wrong. With AI and recession fears and all that, the stock market could tank. Again, don't take my advice, but for those people that do want my opinion, I'm not selling anything because here's the thing which is interesting, and it was my son who said this, and I love the way he worded this because I was thinking this, but I didn't word it well. He goes, if you lost money on stock, because he has one stock, he invested in one stock, and the stock lost some money. And he said, I only lost the money if I sell it, but I still have the shares. So you only lose the money if you sell it. Now, true, if you don't sell stock when it's on the drop, you could lose more. You do need to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. But that's how I feel. With some of the stocks I bought, especially, at the start of COVID, they're not doing well now. But if I lose them, then I lose those shares. And so holding on to shares to me is still value. So that's why I'm not selling. And not to mention that I can't really sell the ones that are under anyway. So that's just me. All right. But thank you for asking for my opinion. I just wish I had a much more educated opinion. But I'm no stock market expert, but that's how I see things. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So every time I was sick, and I had to miss school, and I hated missing school because I hated being home with my mom. But every time I was sick, I would go to the TV and turn on The Price is Right. And I loved watching Bob Barker. And I remember seeing, for the longest time, the same three models. There was Janice, Holly, and Diane. And Janice was older, but I figured, they don't get rid of their models. They're good models. And I was young. I didn't really care. And I thought, boy, things are expensive. That car is $6,000. Oh, man, that's expensive. Those are the prices in the 80s. And so, I'm watching this. And, that you look at a furniture or a trip to Waikiki. And I'm like, man, you got to be rich for that. I'm going to have to go on a game show or I'm never going to get to go to Hawaii. But I like the show. I was always wrong when I guessed the numbers. I would have never made it past. You know how they take people from the audience? Dahlia, come on down. And, they're running and they're having wardrobe malfunctions. And if they aren't wearing the right bra, sometimes you can see boobies and so you get there. And so that would probably be me, because you can't walk slow. You need to get your ass down there. right? And then they ask you where you're from. You say something cute. And I was like, I wouldn't know what to say. Look, I'm a kid. And then you guess. And somebody's like $1. And I'm like, why are they guessing $1? What an idiot. And then the $1 person wins because everybody else went over. Whoever was closer. I would have never won on those. I don't think I ever guessed any of those right. So I would have never been on The Price is Right. And I probably would have never worked on The Price is Right either because you had to be a pretty model. Well, there's been a lot of, I guess, rumors circulating. Bob Barker left us. He was a big advocate for animals and pets and, rescues. But apparently there's been a lot of things coming out where he slept with one of the models or had an affair with one of the models. And when that fell through, she accused him of sexual harassment. And then it was just a big toxic work environment. So one of the people who had spoken out is Holly. Holly was the brunette. And I guess she was there for 18 years. She ends up getting fired in 1995 for allegedly not supporting Bob Barker and what she claims would be committing perjury. So there's a docuseries on E! Called Dirty Rotten Scandals, I guess. And she said she got canceled. Her name is Holly Hallstrom. And she actually hates Bob Barker. She says, I hate that man. Apparently, Barker had allegedly an affair with one of the show models, Diane, the very pretty one, Diane Parkinson. And not sure if she's related to the Parkinson from Parkinson's disease. And apparently they break up and she sues him for sexual harassment. And then another model recalled that Parkinson told her that Barker had forced her to do things in the dressing room when she didn't want to. And so she didn't want to, when the case did start to go through the courts, she said, I wanted nothing to do with it. She said that the early years of the game show were rife with sexual harassment and racism. I was the only one that was asked to give a deposition and did not. I didn't want to commit felony perjury, which is exactly what I would have done if I gave testimony. I refused to testify in court to commit felony perjury for him. She said it was the final straw, but it was against the law to fire an employee for failing to testify on your behalf in a court of law. So they're going to fire me for that. So they said she was fat. So they tried to get her to retire, and then they finally let her go because they said it was from her weight. Now, back, I guess, and then by 2000, Barker eventually dropped the case. Then she sues for malicious prosecution, and I think she actually got a settlement. She said they did offer me a settlement that would include a non-disclosure agreement, meaning that I could not speak publicly about the show, but I knew that I was not going to sign an NDA because he's a liar. He's a shameless, self-promoting liar. I mean, this is Bob Barker, the guy we all loved. She said, I was fired. I had truth on my side. There was no justice, and you can win because you have more money. Over the years, I sold my house, savings account, portfolio, all spent trying to stay in this lawsuit. She says she ends up losing everything. Bob Barker eventually dies in 2023 at the age of 99. And when you look at how things were, nowadays there's just so many protections, in workplaces, but it's almost the other way where you can't even look at somebody. You can't even say, oh, that's a nice outfit. You're in trouble. And I don't know why it can't just be the regular middle of the road type stuff. I mean, it went the other way where now men are so afraid to even be in the same room as a woman because they don't want to be accused. I mean, there's got to be a middle of the road from feeling like you're forced to perform sex acts in somebody's dressing room to, saying nice outfit and being in trouble for it. And maybe we'll somehow find the middle of it. I know Scrubs. I told you the newest Scrubs is kind of fun with that because they kind of make fun of all the things you can and can't say. But there should be appropriateness, and women shouldn't feel like they're going to be harassed or they're going to be assaulted or that to keep their job they have to have sex with you. I mean, that was something that was always. I mean, I was accused. People said, "Well, the only reason why you're here, you got into medical school, you must have slept with somebody." No, I got here because I got good grades. I got good board scores. I had a 3.86 GPA honors program. I double majored. I deserve to be here. And so, unfortunately, those individuals who, shall we say, weren't coerced but, worked themselves the way to the top, ruined it for everybody else who felt coerced or felt accused and, didn't want to be in that position. And so, I don't know if I'm going to watch the miniseries, because it's really ruining now Price is Right for me forever. But unfortunately, I don't think I disbelieve what I'm being told. And it's a shame that stuff happened. 1-877 Doc Dolly.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
You're back on the Dr. Dolly Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dolly, 1-877 DOCDALI. So one of my listeners is having trouble getting the GLP-1 prescription because their PCP doesn't believe in it. And they want some clarification with all the data out there saying, oh, wow, these medications are protecting your heart and cancer risk and stroke risk, when you lose the weight and all this, everybody at the Oscars, it looks like they've been on, double dosing of it. And so what's going on when a doctor doesn't believe in it? Well, making headlines, Eli Lilly has been a little grumpy, and understandably so, because they don't like these GLP knockoffs or these compounded pharmacy versions. Because in order for a compounding pharmacy to use Ozempic, Zepbound, Wegovy, Mounjaro brand name, for them to be able to compound something and bypass patent, they have to make a completely different medication. It has to be a different medication. They could use a component like tirzepatide or semaglutide, but their compound has to be a combo of something. So they put in there other components like B12, L-carnitine, NAD+, things like that. And so Eli Lilly is getting nervous because they're like, we never really tested. Our safety profile doesn't necessarily, tested what happens when you add B12 to it. Now, the FDA allowed the compounders some leeway when there were shortages. But these copycat versions, adding other additives and vitamins so they can make it legit is a concern. Eli Lilly, in a public warning yesterday, said its own testing has unearthed potential safety issues in personalized or compounded forms of tirzepatide. They make Zepbound. They said, according to Eli Lilly, those experiments found significant levels of an impurity that results from a chemical reaction between the tirzepatide and B12. They say that impurity is concerning because nothing is known about its short or long-term effects in humans. Users need to be aware that they may be using a potentially dangerous product with unknown risks. So Eli Lilly is asking the FDA to recall all compounded tirzepatide, which is brand name Mounjaro or Zepbound, containing personalized additives like B, dietary supplements, etc. According to Eli Lilly, they say the continued widespread distribution of untested compounded drugs is an unacceptable risk for patients. Our testing results of these so-called personalized compounded tirzepatide products show they may pose even greater risk to patients than previously known. Now, I know that, when you hear this, you're like, well, Eli Lilly is a pharmaceutical company. And these pharmaceutical companies do not want competition. It's bad enough Eli Lilly has competition with Novo Nordisk. So they want to get the compounded pharmacies out of the equation. So they are able to, they're able to hit the patients themselves. And from what we understand, they have boosted their manufacturing capabilities, but their versions are very expensive. These compounding pharmacies are able to give you your drugs for a couple $100, as opposed to the $1,000, which has now gone down with Trump RX and Good RX and Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk cutting their price. But the FDA has, notified a bunch of online GLP-1 makers that they could be putting patients at risk. And now I don't know if there's going to be an all-out recall, but for those of you that do get compounded formulas, it's not the same as brand name. And I don't know much about if they mix something into it, how safe that is. Especially if you don't need B12, if you don't need L-carnitine or these other components. So going back to our listener who said their doctor doesn't believe in them, what could be going on? Well, a few things. All right. One is that doctor doesn't want the liability of you getting compounded medication. Doctors don't like to write medications that they don't think they could fight successfully in court. So if you have a bad reaction to some compounded formula, they don't want anything to do with that, because one malpractice lawsuit, they could be their career could be ended. So that could be one part of it. Another part of it is, let's say you're asking for brand name. Why would that doctor not write it? Well, because the prior authorization. To fight with the insurance companies takes a long time. And there is a growing population of doctors out there. I don't agree with this, but there is a growing population of doctors out there that'll only write generics. That's it. Because they don't have the staff to fight for the prior auths. In fact, there's a lot of telemedicine companies that, here's an example. One thing that I used to really like to prescribe is a steroid lotion for the head, the scalp, if you were having issues with hair loss, psoriasis, eczema of the scalp. But the medications are very expensive. Every time I wrote it, the nurse is like, Dr. Dahlia, the insurance is rejecting it. I go, well, what will the insurance cover? They said none of them. Well, we need to explain. We need to fax the records. We need to, and it was a pain in the ass, but we got it done. But it's interesting because the telemedicine company I work for, they every time I try to write the medication, just won't go through because it's too difficult and too long, and it's very hard for a telemedicine company to fight with the insurance company because they're like, well, what did the biopsy show? What did the exam show? Well, it's a telemedicine, so you can't. Telemedicine companies are kind of still, working on how to be more successful with prior auths if they're not actually examining the patient in person. There is a lot you could do and justify online with pictures, but for insurance companies that are trying to find ways to not pay, they're hoping the patient will be like, I forget it, I don't want it. And so many doctors struggle to get staff back after COVID. One, people were afraid of COVID, so staff didn't want to come back if there wasn't enough PPE. Two, all their friends and their mothers were on remote jobs. And they were like, I could actually work remotely 2 jobs in one, just sitting at home and be with my pets and kids? Oh, hell yeah. And so trying to get people back to medical offices was hard. And, I've talked to doctors who had for me, I closed my office before any of that happened because I went to teach and do my show full time and then do telemedicine. So I didn't have the issue with COVID like other doctors did. But many of the doctors who had their practice, they're closed now. They said, we just don't have staff. Now, some offices figured out how to do it with just one staff person. They have one staff person do the vitals, make the calls, and many of them have turned their practice into something so low maintenance that's if you aren't going through one of these big, huge corporation medical clinics. But if you're going to a smaller clinic, if they only have one staff person, they're probably not making that staff person do prior auths. They're probably having them call on labs, order labs, do these things, and they're keeping it small. I have a friend of mine where he only has one staff person, and that's it. And when that person's off or on vacation, he does it all. Now, I could have done that because I can't tell you how many times I had a good staff, but I had staff that weren't doing their job, and I had to do it anyway. But keeping your practice small, he's also concierge, so everybody's paying about $2-3 a year to see him. I just am not ready to do that. But so if you have a doctor that says, no, I don't believe in it. The third reason is, as we talked about yesterday, there's a study showing, which is what we predicted, somebody going off the medicine, now their heart risk skyrockets. So why would a doctor put you on something that you can't be on long term or afford long term, or we don't know the safety of long term for you to go off of it and now increase your heart risk? So, yeah, I'm not surprised that there's doctors out there who won't prescribe it. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit, and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So they might have to start putting cameras on planes, because one thing that has plagued now passengers as well as airline crew has been disruptions on planes and needing to kick somebody off the plane. And there's always a back and forth. And it's getting to the point now where there's lawsuits and it's a mess. And these airlines are retaliating by just raising the rates and making it expensive, because they're probably hoping that somebody will decide, you know what, I'm just not going to fly. It's too expensive. And, I don't know what their thinking is. But this Frontier issue where somebody was reportedly deaf on the plane. This is interesting. And again, there's two sides to every story. So apparently there's a TikTok user named Legally Swifty13. And she posted on March 12th saying she got kicked off Frontier Airlines because she was deaf. Well, okay, so I mean, everybody was like, no way. I am done with Frontier Airlines. How horrible. They should be sued by the ADA. Frontier Airlines is like, no, that's not why she was removed from the plane. She wasn't removed from the plane because she was deaf. So what happened here? So the Frontier Airlines passenger said that she was on the flight and she didn't hear an instruction from a stewardess because she's deaf. And the flight attendant gave her an instruction. She didn't do it. So she got removed. So she claims that Frontier Airlines kicked me off a flight because I'm deaf. What is the point of listing that you're deaf on your ticket when Frontier refuses to accommodate? Now, Frontier said it's not on her ticket. Usually disabilities, whenever you check in, there's a way to report. Like when I took my mom and there was going to be and I had to bring her wheelchair and all that. I went through all the process so that they knew, and they knew ahead of time. And then when you have special needs, you go on the plane first. So there's a process by that. But I get it. Some people might not necessarily want to go through the process. But this video, seeing her crying in the seat and seeing, distraught, and there was a tense exchange. So she said, she didn't do anything wrong. It's embarrassing. She leaves. So what is Frontier Airlines saying? Well, Frontier Airlines is saying that she brought alcohol onto the plane. You're not supposed to. You're not allowed to bring an open container with alcohol. They say she even admitted it contained alcohol. So she quickly downed it. Yep, because bringing an open container of alcohol on board violates both Frontier policy and federal law. She rapidly consumed the remaining alcohol, according to the flight attendant. And then she handed the cup over. Now, then I guess they asked her then, because that was a violation, to leave. So the airline claims to People magazine the flight crew made the call to remove her and then rebook her on a later flight. Instead, it went to a whole issue of, this had to do with hearing issues. And now she's wearing hearing aids. And maybe she does have a hearing issue. But, this is... what concerns me is if she, how many times have you, lied? Like, cops pulling you over. Okay. Do you know why you were speeding? But by the way, when a cop ever pulls you over and go, do you know why I pulled you over? Don't start listing things out. Like in the movie Liar, Liar, don't start listing things out, right? Just say, I don't know. Because then they got you to admit something. And I had to learn that because, cop coming up, excuse me, ma'am, do you know why you were do you know why I pulled you over? I was speeding. No, don't say that. Say, I really don't. Nice to meet you, though. Keep your hands on the wheel. Say, and I'll sometimes flirt, go, I don't mind because you're handsome. I don't know if that works now that I'm middle-aged, but I've gotten out a lot of tickets. But you don't admit to it. Yeah. But how many times, like, you were speeding, you were this. It's like, I got out of a ticket. I told you guys I got out of a ticket because I was supposed to go for my mammogram and I wanted my husband, to take a picture from behind, because I always promote, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And he was late and I didn't want to be late and I didn't want to wait for him. So I'm sitting there revving the engine in the parking lot, waiting for his ass to get into the car. And then I start to out. And he's like, you need to slow down. You'll get pulled over. And I go, we're late. He goes, but you need to slow down because we'll get pulled over. Well, all of a sudden, and he's like, I told you so. And I started to panic because I've never had to flirt with a cop with my husband in the car. I've done it with the kids in the car, but it's like, I didn't know, how am I going to get out of this ticket? I've gotten out of many, many tickets. How do I do that when my husband's there? Because the flirting only works. You could flirt, but the other person has to kind of receive it. And they're not going to receive that flirting if your husband's there. So the cop pulls me over and they go, you were speeding, ma'am. And you were going this. Well, I said I didn't know why. I was like, oh, officer, I just don't know why. What happened? And he goes, well, ma'am, you were speeding. And I go, well, if I was, here's why. And I didn't tell him that I was mad at my husband. And I was trying to make a point with the sound of the revving of the engine. Of course I'm going to lie. I told him, look, I'm late for my mammogram. And I really get nervous with my mammogram because the machines, every time I go for my mammogram, they always ask me to lift the breast. And I'm like, I need the machine to go down. I can't lift the breast. Just bring the machine down. And they're like, ma'am, we don't want to get your foot in the mammogram. I go, it's good. Then you could check on my bunions. And so I told him what I think happens is it was the boobie and not the foot on the gas pedal. Well, he was, laughing, and he's like, never mind. Just, will you drive safe to your mammogram, ma'am? And I go, I will. And by the way, are you checking your prostate? Make sure your prostate's checked because prostate cancer is also. He's like, I will, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. I'm giving him orders now. And I look at my husband, and he is just jaw dropped in shock. I go, I just got out of another ticket. He's like, damn, that was impressive. But you lie. You lie. So if somebody's saying, you're going to get kicked off a plane because you can't, I would say I'm deaf. I'm part deaf. Now, I am hard of hearing. That's why I speak loud. I am hard of hearing. Okay, well, do I have a disability? Do I have something that says that? Do I have any proof? So my worry is we ruin it for the rest of us if we lie. And I'm not saying she's lying. Frontier could be lying. I don't know. But if she's claiming, if she's claiming, she, has disability and all that, and meanwhile she's violating laws, pounding down alcohol when you're not supposed to. I mean, remember, these airlines get sued if they treat one person differently from another. So if you're sitting there doing something that's against federal policy, they have to treat you the same as everybody else and kick you off the plane. Now, I don't drink alcohol before I go on a flight. But I understand the alcohol is expensive on the flight. So people try to drink and get their buzz going and do their pregame before they get on the plane. I wouldn't advise that. But, planes, because of, remember the masks and all the other BS, it's always, what does one person say to another? And then the witnesses, are individuals who you've already kind of bonded with, or they're your family or friends. So what is the airline supposed to do? You really can't see what's going on in the other rows. You can't. So, look at that guy that was messing with, was it Mike Tyson? And then Mike Tyson hit him back because he kept poking at him and bugging him. Not everybody got a good view of that. But, I wouldn't be surprised if airlines are like, we're just going to have a camera. You know what? I'm sure they have cameras. They have to. Because the pilot needs to know if there's a threat and what's going on. I'm sure there already are cameras, but maybe they don't want to let people know. Let people know. Let them know that there's a camera on them. Because there's all this BS happening where people are giving flight attendants a hard time. And I've had flight attendants who were really mean to me. And I'm like, you don't have to be that mean. But I understand why they've gotten that way, because customers and passengers can sometimes be jerks. All right, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.